Hello, and welcome to Los Alamos National Laboratory's Math and Science Academy. This is the second of three threads discussing the Grade 5 standard involving dividing unit fractions by whole numbers and whole numbers by unit fractions. In this example, we will be dividing whole numbers by unit fractions by exploring the question, how many 1/3 cup servings are in 2 cups of raisins? The learning goals for this standard include translating word problems into associated mathematical tasks and visualizing and understanding the division of unit fractions by whole numbers and whole numbers by unit fractions. In this particular thread, we'll be talking about dividing a whole number by a unit fraction. In another thread, we will discuss dividing a whole number by non-unit fractions. Another learning goal is for the student to use multiple strategies to understand fractions and whole numbers and their relationships, including area models, number lines, and symbols. As in every standard, the student needs to be able to communicate mathematical thinking with precision. So here's our problem again. How many 1/3 cup servings are there in 2 cups of raisins? This is similar to the previous problem where we had a half a pound of chocolate and we're dividing it among 3 people. But in that case, we had a unit fraction divided by a whole number, 3 people. Whereas in this case, we have a whole number of cups of raisins and are dividing by the unit fraction. So it's kind of the reverse of the previous example. We'll start out by looking at this from an area model point of view. If we allow 2 green circles, these two to represent 2 wholes, the 2 whole cups of raisins, then a 1/3 cup serving would be represented by 1/3 of one of those cups. The task then is to see how many of these servings, this size of a slice, would fit into the 2 full cups. And so we replicate the 1/3 cup servings as many times as we can, and fortunately in this case it fits in an even number of times, and we can simply count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and get that there are 6 servings altogether. One thing that might be new to students depending on their experience is that we've now divided a number 2 and gotten a larger number 6. This is of course because we've divided the number by a fraction, a proper fraction, and this is an idea that can sometimes be very confusing because physically division to a student typically means breaking into smaller parts. So this is where it gets a little more abstract, and we have to help them understand that we're really counting how many thirds are in 2. And there can be more than 2. There, in fact, will be 6 of them. So here's our problem again. How many 1/3 cup servings are there in 2 cups of raisins? This time we'll be a little bit more abstract than the area model and use a number line. To do this, we'll represent our 2 cups of raisins as this section of a number line from 0 to 2. And our 1/3 cup serving then would be 1/3 of one of these cups. So we need to split the number line up into thirds and look at 1/3 as 1 serving. To see how many of these servings we have altogether, we simply count the number of thirds that we have in our 2 cups, and we replicate this and add them up and see that we have 6 thirds. But each third is 1 serving, as we said here, so 6 thirds, or 2 cups, represents 6 servings. Okay, so here's our problem again. How many 1/3 cup servings are there in 2 cups of raisins? And this time we'll use a procedure. The key idea in this problem is that we have 2 cups being divided by 1/3. Now at this stage, the student may have different ideas of what exactly division by a fraction means, but because this is a unit fraction, we can simply think of how many times does 1/3 go into 2 cups. Symbolically, what we need is 2 divided by 1/3. The student may or may not know that division by any fraction or any number is multiplication by the reciprocal of that number. If they understand this, that's great, and that's what they need to know to get to the full fluency with the procedures. If they don't, you can refer to the section on dividing by fractions to help get a more intuitive understanding why this is the case. In any case, in this particular case, we're dividing by 1/3, which is multiplying by the reciprocal 3/1. And because, again, it's a unit fraction, 3/1 becomes a whole number, and we simply have 2 times 3, or 6, and we have 6 servings. Again, it may be important to reiterate why a division ends up with a larger number, and it's because you're dividing by a fraction, by a part. So in this series, we've seen images, concepts, facts, language, and procedure all working to support the idea of dividing a whole number by a fraction. Here you see the teacher work for our question, how many 1/3 cup servings in 2 cups of raisins? The teacher has done pretty much exactly what we did, except using bars for the area model. Here are 2 whole cups of raisins. How many 1/3s are there? And so they break each cup into 3 even sections and count the number of thirds and get 6. This is the kind of communication that we'd hope to get from a student who's very familiar with this problem and fully understands it. Recognizing that there are 2 cups to start with, here's the core of the problem. Each cup has 3/3 of a cup in it. And then they're doing a multiply basically because there are 2 of those cups. So there are 6/3 in 2 cups, or 6 servings. You'll see once again images, concepts expressed right here, facts in the multiply. The language is very clearly expressed how the thinking is going here, and the procedure is very meaningful if they can carry it out with this level of understanding.